The unexpected toothache. It was a regular morning, and Sofia, my bright and lively daughter, was humming as she played with her toys. But then, everything changed. The cheerful sound of her laughter suddenly turned into a sharp cry. "Mom, my tooth hurts," she exclaimed, her face contorted in pain. She had never complained about her teeth before, so I rushed over to her, my heart skipping a beat. Sofia had always been the picture of health, never a hint of sickness or discomfort. She was always so full of energy, always running around, playing and laughing. So to hear her cry out in pain was completely out of the blue. I knelt beside her, trying to calm her down. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, brushing her hair from her forehead. Sofia pointed to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. "It hurts so much, Mommy," she whimpered. She pressed her little hand to her cheek, and I could feel my own heart race with worry. What could cause a little girl like her so much pain? I tried to keep my voice steady as I stroked her hair. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll go to the dentist right now, and they'll fix it." But even as I said the words, I couldn't shake the worry in my chest. It wasn't like her to feel unwell. Sofia had always been so strong, so full of life. A toothache. It didn't make sense. I quickly grabbed her things, and we rushed out the door. The feeling of dread grew heavier with every step. Was it just a simple cavity? Or something worse? I couldn't help but imagine the worst, my mind racing with worry as we headed straight to the dentist. When we arrived at Dr. Adams' office, I could tell something wasn't right. The receptionist greeted us warmly, as always, but there was a subtle tension in the air that I couldn't ignore. I tried to shake it off. After all, it was just a routine checkup, right? But Sofia's pain was real, and that made everything feel uncertain. We were led into the examination room, and I noticed how quiet the office felt. The usual hum of the dental equipment and the chatter of patients were absent. It felt like something was about to happen, something I couldn't predict. Sofia sat quietly in the chair, looking up at me with big worried eyes. I squeezed her hand, trying to comfort her, but deep down, I couldn't help but feel the knot of fear in my stomach. The air felt heavy, and I didn't know why. Dr. Adams, the dentist, walked in, his usual calm smile plastered on his face. But today, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Hello, Maria." "Sofia," he said, his voice a little softer than usual. His friendly demeanor felt like a thin mask over something else, something I couldn't quite place. "Let's have a look at that tooth, Sofia," he said, trying to make it sound casual. But I could see the unease in his eyes. Sofia sat still as Dr. Adams began examining her. He gently prodded her tooth with his tools, his face unreadable as he worked. But something felt off. The usual calm and routine of the office seemed to vanish in that moment. I watched as Dr. Adams looked at the X-rays on the screen, his expression changing. His eyes narrowed, his brow furrowed, and his lips pressed together in concern. What was he seeing? A chill ran down my spine as I watched him carefully adjust his glasses and examine the tooth again. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though he was searching for something. I could feel the tension rising in the room, my breath catching in my throat. Why was he taking so long? What was wrong? Finally, Dr. Adams straightened up and turned to me, his face grave. "Maria," he said, his voice suddenly quieter. "I need you to step outside with me for a moment." His words were calm, but there was an unmistakable tension in his tone that made my stomach twist. "I'll take a closer look at Sofia's tooth and consult with a few of my colleagues. It won't take long, I promise." I nodded, though my hands trembled as I helped Sofia out of the chair. "It's okay, sweetie. Mommy will be right here," I said, trying to comfort her. But Sofia was still looking up at Dr. Adams, a look of confusion in her eyes. She was only 7 years old, and all she knew was that her tooth hurt. She didn't understand why the dentist was acting so strangely. I followed Dr. Adams out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. What had he seen in Sofia's tooth? Why did he need to consult with other doctors? Was it something serious? The questions filled my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. I could feel my legs trembling as I waited outside the examination room. I wanted to burst through the door and demand answers, but I knew I had to wait. Minutes passed like hours. My mind raced through every possible scenario. What could cause a toothache in a child who had always been healthy? Was it a deep cavity, a rare infection, or something I didn't even know about? Just as I was about to lose my composure, the door to the examination room opened. Dr. Adams walked out, his expression even more serious than before. My heart skipped a beat. He looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. "Maria," he began, "I need you to wait just a little longer. There's something we need to discuss about Sofia's condition." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. What could it be? What was going on with my daughter's tooth? And why did Dr. Adams look so worried? The suspense was unbearable, and I had no idea how much longer I could wait for answers. The shocking discovery. As Maria waited in the hallway, her thoughts were spinning in 1,000 directions. Every possible scenario ran through her mind, each one worse than the last. What had Dr. Adams found in Sofia's mouth? Why had he been so quiet after examining her tooth? Maria's stomach twisted with worry, and the tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. The calmness of the dentist's office felt far away now, replaced by the uncertainty of what was happening behind closed doors. Sofia sat next to her mother, her small hand tightly clutching Maria's. The little girl had always been brave, but now she seemed confused, her innocent eyes filled with worry. She had never seen her mother so anxious before, and it was starting to scare her. Sofia kept looking at the door to the examination room, waiting for Dr. Adams to come back and tell her it was nothing serious, just a little cavity that could be fixed in no time. But deep down, Maria could sense it was more than that. Something wasn't right. The minutes ticked by, each second dragging on, and Maria found herself staring at the clock on the wall. What could be taking so long? The normally busy dentist's office now seemed eerily quiet. The usual hum of dental equipment and the friendly banter between the staff felt distant. All Maria could focus on was the waiting, the uncertainty. Was it something as simple as a cavity, or was it something far worse? Could it be an infection? Or maybe something even more dangerous? Just as the silence became unbearable, the door to the examination room opened. Dr. Adams walked out, but he didn't look the same as when he had entered. His face was serious, his usual friendly expression replaced by one of concern. His eyes met Maria's, and she could feel a cold shiver run down her spine. Something had changed. "Maria," Dr. Adams said, his voice calm but with a tone that Maria had never heard before. "I need you to come with me." Maria's heart skipped a beat. What could it be? Why did he need to take them to another room? "Of course," Maria replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She looked down at Sofia, who was still sitting quietly beside her. "Come on, sweetie," she said softly, helping Sofia to her feet. The family followed Dr. Adams down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. The sense of unease was overwhelming now, and Maria felt a knot tighten in her stomach. As they entered the small consultation room, Dr. Adams closed the door behind them, turning to face them with an expression that sent a wave of dread over Maria. He sat down at the desk, his hands folded in front of him. "There's something very unusual with Sofia's tooth," Dr. Adams began, his voice steady but grave. "It's not a simple cavity, and it's not something I would expect to find in a child of her age." Maria blinked, her mind racing. "What do you mean? What's wrong with her tooth?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Dr. Adams paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I found something in Sofia's mouth that shouldn't be there. Something that's not part of her natural tooth structure. It's small, but it's not from any dental procedure. It's—" He trailed off, his eyes flicking to Sofia for a moment before turning back to Maria. "Not from any dental procedure," Maria repeated, confused. "What are you saying, Dr. Adams? What did you find?" Dr. Adams stood up from the desk, and slowly he reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small round object, and with a steady hand, placed it on the table in front of Maria. The object was no bigger than a marble, but its surface was smooth and metallic, with tiny engravings on it. Maria's eyes widened in shock. What was this thing? Is this from Sofia's tooth? Maria asked, her voice shaking as she looked at the object. Dr. Adams nodded slowly. It appears to be. It was lodged inside her tooth. It must have been there for some time. But the question is, how did it get there? It's not something that should have been inside her mouth at all. And it's certainly not something I've ever seen before. Maria stared at the small object, her mind reeling. But how? How could this happen? It doesn't make sense. She hasn't had any dental work done. Why would there be something like this in her tooth? That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out, Dr. Adams replied, his voice low. I've never seen anything like this in all my years of practice, and I can't explain how it ended up inside her tooth. Maria's thoughts were racing. She glanced down at Sofia, who was looking at the object with wide, curious eyes, clearly as confused as her mother. Sofia had always been a curious child, but this was something far beyond anything she had ever encountered before. Doctor, Maria said, her voice growing more urgent, what are you telling me? Is this dangerous? What is it? I'm not sure yet, Dr. Adams admitted, but I'm going to consult with some of my colleagues. We need to figure out what this object is and how it got there. I'll make sure Sofia is taken care of, but I want to run some tests to be absolutely sure. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as Maria sat, still trying to process what had just happened. Her daughter, Sofia, had come in with what seemed like a simple toothache, and now they were staring at a small, mysterious object that had somehow ended up lodged in her tooth. This was no longer just a routine dental visit. Something bigger, something much more bizarre, was unfolding. Maria felt a chill run down her spine as she looked at the small object. How had it gotten there? What was it? And what did it mean for Sofia? The suspense hung in the air, and Maria could barely contain her growing concern. The mystery of Sofia's toothache had just turned into something far more complicated, and she couldn't help but wonder what else was hidden beneath the surface. The truth behind the shocking discovery. Maria sat there, still trying to comprehend everything Dr. Adams had just told her. The small metallic object sat in front of her, its surface smooth and cold, yet somehow heavy with mystery. It wasn't just a regular foreign object. It was a puzzle that had led them down a path they never expected. The truth that would follow would change everything they thought they knew about Sofia's health and safety. Dr. Adams had told Maria he would consult with his colleagues, but the uncertainty of the situation was unbearable. Maria felt the weight of every second that passed. What was this object? How had it ended up inside Sofia's tooth? She had never seen anything like it before, and neither had Dr. Adams. The object wasn't something that could simply have been stuck in her mouth by accident. It was far too deliberate, far too intricate. I'll contact a specialist, Dr. Adams had said before he left the room to make a few calls. But Maria knew they had to get to the bottom of this mystery. There were too many questions and no answers yet. As Maria sat there, her thoughts spinning, Sofia sat quietly by her side, still clutching her hand. Sofia had been so brave through it all, but Maria could see the worry in her little girl's eyes. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she knew something wasn't right. It wasn't long before Dr. Adams returned, his face as serious as ever. Maria, I've spoken to a few colleagues, he began. They've never seen anything like this either. This object is not from any dental procedure. It's not something that could have been placed here by accident. In fact, I'm afraid it's something much more deliberate. Maria felt her chest tighten. What did he mean? What could be so deliberate about a small object stuck inside her daughter's tooth? Dr. Adams went on, carefully placing the object on the table in front of them. We've been looking at this from every angle, and we've come to a troubling conclusion. This object doesn't belong to any known dental equipment. It's not a piece of filling or a part of a dental tool. It's something far stranger. Maria's breath caught in her throat. She could feel her hands trembling as she stared at the object. It didn't make sense. How could something like this end up inside her daughter's tooth? The questions piled up faster than she could process them. This is where things get even more troubling. Dr. Adams continued, his voice lowering. We believe this object is part of something larger, something we don't fully understand yet. It's not just some forgotten piece of equipment. It's a hidden item, and I think it's been intentionally placed inside Sofia's tooth. Maria's mind raced. Placed inside her tooth. But how? Who would do such a thing? And why? Dr. Adams looked at Maria, his expression grave. That's what we need to figure out. But from what we can tell, this wasn't an accident. Someone, or something, may have put this object inside Sofia's mouth deliberately. The air in the room grew heavy, and Maria felt her heart start to pound in her chest. The words felt like a punch to her stomach. Who could have done this? And why? What did this object have to do with Sofia's health? Was she in danger? The room fell into a tense silence, each of them trying to make sense of the bizarre situation. Sofia, sensing her mother's anxiety, quietly squeezed Maria's hand. She didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation, but she knew something was wrong. Maria gave her a reassuring smile, but inside, she was terrified. As Dr. Adams explained further, he pulled up a few more images on the screen, showing some similar objects he had found in other dental cases. None of them had ever led to anything major, until now. The object in Sofia's mouth wasn't the same as the others. It was unique, mysterious, and unlike anything Dr. Adams had encountered in his entire career. This could be part of something larger, Dr. Adams said slowly, but I have no idea what it means. I'm going to need to bring in experts who specialize in these kinds of cases. I suggest you take Sofia home for now. I'll continue researching and keep you updated. Maria nodded, still in shock. But what if it's dangerous? She asked, her voice shaky. I don't think it's dangerous for now, Dr. Adams reassured her, though his tone didn't carry the usual confidence. But we need to understand what this object is and why it was placed there. It's just too strange. As Maria left the dentist's office with Sofia, her mind was a blur of confusion and fear. The questions swirled in her mind, unanswered. How did this object end up inside her daughter's tooth? Who put it there? And why? The more Maria thought about it, the more she realized that this wasn't just an unusual dental issue. There was something far bigger at play, something hidden beneath the surface that they hadn't yet uncovered. And the more she tried to piece it together, the more troubling it became. That night, Maria stayed awake long after Sofia had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling and thinking about what Dr. Adams had said. Was it possible that someone had placed this object in Sofia's mouth on purpose? What was the real story behind this strange discovery? She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was a deeper mystery lurking, one that involved far more than just a simple toothache. By morning, Maria knew that she had to find the answers. Whatever had happened to Sofia, whatever was happening now, she wouldn't rest until the truth came out. She had to protect her daughter, no matter what it took. The discovery of the small object had opened up a new world of questions, and as the mystery unraveled, Maria began to understand that the story behind Sofia's toothache was far bigger and more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. What would they uncover next? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear. The truth was out there, and it would change everything. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.